Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bitcoin Not Crypto. I'm Forrest Hodel. This is the live session I do every single Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Welcome if you're new here, and appreciate you all for tuning in, especially the early comers to the show. You kind of get a little bit of a bonus because I like to do a couple of these tosses in the Bitcoin wishing well, which gives you an opportunity to win some free Bitcoin. Not much free Bitcoin going around. So the few people that are already here, 10 a.m. sharp, you guys get a very good chance and opportunity to win some free sats. This is the reward program that Bitcoin Well does. This is a way of, just getting some free Bitcoin. You get a bunch of these free tosses in the well by using my link in the description to actually sign up to Bitcoin Well. And basically, the way it works is you redeem 500 of the points, and you get a free toss in the wishing well. You get an opportunity to win 1 million sats, and then you scan this, or if it's your own, you can tap it and paste it into your Lightning wallet. So you can scan this with a Lightning wallet. If you're the first person to do so, you'll win 572 sats. Do two of these at the beginning of the show, and I'll do two at the end as well. And we'll get into today's topic. This live show that I do, I usually ramble for a little bit after we do these tosses, and then I will answer questions. So if you guys have any questions about Bitcoin, about any of the videos I've done in the past, anything you want to talk about, you can post comments in the comment section. We're live on YouTube, and we're live on Zapstream as well. We already got 21 sats over on Zapstream from Pipo Libertario. Thanks for your job from Argentina. Oh, actually, this looks like it was an old one. I remember reading this out last time. So I'm just going to refresh. Yeah, no zaps on Zapstream yet. And we're going to do one more toss in the wishing well here, and then we'll get into the show. How much is it going to be? How much is it going to be? 329 sats. Not a huge amount this time. I think it might have been last time or the time before somebody won 21,000 sats. People have won 210,000 sats. It's been crazy. We've had some pretty serious streamer loot with the Bitcoin wishing well. All right, so I will get to your guys' questions. I see there's a few people in the chat already. Nav and Naughty Vlogs. Appreciate you both. I will get to those comments in a second, but first, we'll talk about the FUD du jour, which I just happened to have made a video on the day before. I released a video a day before Nick Cannon or Aaron Carter, whoever this guy is, Nick Carter, before he posted this article. And it's titled, "Bitcoin Developers Are Sleepwalking Towards Collapse." An incredibly, what's the word here? Actually, I think the first comment, sensationalized. Yeah, this title is incredibly sensationalized. The article itself, and not as bad as the title is. But basically, this is talking about sort of the quantum risk to Bitcoin and how developers aren't really working on it, not really paying attention to it, not taking it seriously, and so on and so on. And funny enough, actually, the day before I released that video was my Bitcoin meetup, and we did a question and answer kind of Q&A panel with a few other Bitcoiners, and one of the questions was about quantum. So this was in the atmosphere before this. I think that's probably why I ended up making a video about it, and that's probably why he wrote this article about it. But basically, what I see happening, there's so many things about quantum computing that is speculative. Basically, quantum computing gets 5 times 5 correct about 60% of the time. And that's what people are worried about. And I think the other thing here too is a lack of understanding about cryptography and the way that cryptography develops, right? There's always an arms race with cryptography. There's always cryptography and then people trying to break cryptography, right? And so just there, right, quantum computing is this boogeyman of a technology that can break cryptography. And this is just constant. This is a constant worry with cryptography, right? And that always creates the necessity of increasing cryptography standards, of creating better cryptography. So why would this case be any different? And I think the difference that people kind of feel is that a quantum leap is something that is significantly different and could happen before we have developed some sort of quantum resistant cryptography, which is not really the case. So you can actually see there's a couple messaging apps out there, some email apps that have moved their cryptography over to quantum resistant cryptography. So a lot of the internet uses SHA-256. A lot of the government uses it. Corporations, companies, they use the cryptography that is in the hashing algorithm of Bitcoin. Now, there's also elliptical curve cryptography that creates the public-private key pairings, which is actually potentially more at risk from something like quantum computing. However, these things are all upgradable. And here's the thing, right? Here's the thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin needs to move slowly, not just 10 minutes every block being slow, but it needs to upgrade and change slowly as well. The reason for that is that slowness, that that non-rush to change actually creates stability and security. And so just me mentioning the fact that there are some messaging apps, some email apps that use that have upgraded to this quantum resistant type of cryptography means that though there's already trial runs of that in public. So over time, I imagine as it gets worked out, as these bugs get fixed within that, as it becomes more and more stable and a better reputation, then it makes more sense to begin seriously thinking about it, because it's such a bigger risk to move anything within Bitcoin to a new algorithm of cryptography than to just stay the same when there is no risk of quantum computing today. If there was some serious risk to it, then we might have to be hasty, but there really isn't, right? The biggest sort of people within this space still say, oh, like the biggest bulls for quantum will say, oh, it's 3 to 5 years away, something like that, right? I think it's likely way further than that. But within those years, if we've already seen moves from private sector companies to move towards this kind of stuff, we will see other entities move towards quantum resistant cryptography. And then we will see that it's either stable enough or not stable enough, and begin to actually move the developers and everybody, create some BIPs and say, well, we believe that this is secure enough now. We believe this is good enough now, or we don't, and we should wait longer, right? That conversation can happen down the line. There is way more risk of rushing into a change than to remain the same with Bitcoin. I think that is what a lot of the quantum computing crypto or stock peddlers don't want you to think about, right? Is the risk of doing something often at times outweighs the risk of not doing something. And this is 100% the case at this point. As I said, like basically quantum computing being able to actually have a drastic effect on any part of Bitcoin is completely theoretical at this point. And, theoretical means that it's possible, right? In theory, but in practical nature, it is not at this point. Doesn't mean that it won't be at some point, but, it's highly unlikely at this point. So that's what I wanted to talk about as far as the quantum FUD. I do want to talk. Actually, we got a question here from Brandon Holm. Or a comment. The fact Bitcoin moves slowly is the reason why we need to start talking about it now and building consensus under a plan so that we can react when needed, not rushing into a change, but getting ready. Yeah, and as you said right here, BIP 360 is a good step forward here. So there already are BIPs looking at this. There already are people talking about this. I just think that maybe this is, maybe it's true that we do need some sensationalized aspect of this to push people in the direction of preparing. But I think it's a little overdone. I think there's probably, well, actually, I'm kind of thinking about this in real time here. But I do think that there's lots of aspects of Bitcoin that need to be worked on. I think there are people working on really cool stuff. Let's say mini script. There are some scaling solutions being built out, things like that. Um, I think that developers are not, individuals are not jack of all trades wanting or even interested in working on every single aspect of improving Bitcoin in some way. So the people that are interested in improving Bitcoin in this quantum cryptography way, um, will work on it, and this will bring more attention to their work, more discussion around the BIPs, say BIP 360, for instance, which is good. It's all good. I just think that uh, I think it's crazy to be selling out of quantum fear. That's crazy to me at this point, because it to me it feels very far away, a lot further away than some of these peddlers will make you want to seem. And I don't think that this is some sort of problem is that we're unable to get past, like, at all. I think that this will be relatively simple as it develops in the public sphere, as I mentioned. It becomes easier and easier to build consensus around. Okay, there's no risk to actually discussing this more seriously. What else did I want to do? Oh, okay. And I think the other part of my title here is the bear market, right? This is an ongoing discussion as we talk about um, the bear market. I don't believe that the bull market's over. I think we've seen this type of price action before. I think that people are correlating this price action with uh, the 4-year cycle fears and having had a top in the fourth quarter of the year that we're in, past the cycle or the year after the cycle. I think largely Bitcoin has actually been following the business cycle. I think there's a lot of people saying this, and I also believe that it to be true. And I think we will trade sideways, and we might bottom out within 10% of where we are today. That's my belief, and we will go higher from there. It's possible that doesn't happen, but that's just how it feels to me. And I think that Bitcoin's price is relying a lot on increase of liquidity of dollars, because Bitcoin is a direct answer to that problem of fiat debasement, and the economy running hotter. So the economy is basically stagnated in a lot of ways throughout this year, and Bitcoin's price has definitely stagnated with it. So that's my that's my thesis there. Now, there are a few more comments here that I wanted to talk about around quantum. So we'll just continue that conversation. Then we'll go back to the top here and answer some other questions that people have said. What if there's someone in a coma or in prison and they don't move their coins to quantum resistant wallets? There will be a day when people have to start moving their coins. Yeah, possibly. My understanding of it is there's also basically right now, if you haven't reused your address, so if you haven't sent, so when you send Bitcoin, proper software, proper protocol is you send Bitcoin, you have a change address that it goes back to, and essentially that change address is quantum safe until you spend from it again, because when you spend, it reveals the public key associated with that. Then there's a 10-minute time frame where that public key, if quantum computing existed to this degree, could find the private key pairing to it, and then would have to create a transaction even quicker than you, even though you've already initiated a transaction, and be able to steal your coins there. So the more so the coins that are threat are pay to public key, which is the earliest address type, and there's more than 1 million or so of those coins. I don't know the exact number. It's more than 1 million because there's roughly 1 million Satoshi coins estimated. So yeah, that is possible, but those coins would be safe um, until they had to move them, and then there's this opportunity of a quantum computing sort of taking that at some degree. The other question with quantum, which I addressed in my video quite a lot, is who created the quantum computing computer, who has control of it, and is it legally and socially acceptable for them to just steal Bitcoin, right? I think if Google's the one to create quantum, they're going to gatekeep that as much as they can. I don't think Google is going to have a business arm of stealing people's Bitcoin. I don't think that's realistic. Maybe if China does it, maybe but yeah, we'll kind of see. You know, it really depends, right? So we'll get into this. Maxwell's equations. Public keys can be a problem, which can break private, but 12, 24 words are a hash of private. Can't the 12 or 24 prove ownership if frozen, since quantum can't devise that hash? Let's see. Can be a problem which can break private. Public keys. Yeah, okay. So public keys, when they're exposed, quantum computing could basically derive the private key from it. Yeah, 12 or 24 words are a hash of the private. So they are, my understanding of it is the 12 or 24 words are protected, even if the private key for a specific wallet is found through quantum computing. Can't the 12 or 24 word seed prove ownership if frozen? Prove ownership, sure, but it still needs to move within the protocol. So there maybe could be some sort of, yeah, that's maybe a bit beyond my knowledge, but there could be maybe a protocol adjustment to make that the case, so that these coins could be moved. It's still yeah, I'm not sure how that would work. It would still have to move through the protocol, but maybe there'd be a way of being able to move that to a quantum resistant wallet without quantum being able to break that. Not 100% sure there. Just make sure your coins are not in P2PK, which is highly unlikely that they are, unless you're a real OG, or P2TR. Interesting. P2. Oh, that's Taproot. Yes, right. Taproot addresses as well. And you should be relatively quantum safe for a long time, and don't reuse addresses. Yeah, exactly. People are trying to justify why Bitcoin isn't moving. Oh, actually, okay. There's a little more quantum stuff here, and then we'll get back to the original questions here. Quantum FUD has to be one of the goofiest ones yet. We are realistically decades away, if it ever happens, and all governments, banks, institutions would be affected first. Yeah, so that's true, right? And that's why they'll probably act first, and Bitcoin will be able to slowly integrate that when it's been proven. I will just say that over and over and over. And Brandon, I think you are right that we shouldn't be hasty, but we should be preparing. That's absolutely true. And I think Bitcoiners are nothing if not prepared and paranoid. So I think that just lends itself to that, which is great. Yeah. And yeah, all right. Anyway, 1224 is one directional to generate a private, but you can't generate the words from a private. This can be used as ownership. Yeah, it can be used as ownership, but again, I don't know how that would be able to move. So you could prove that you own it. If there was, it would be kind of a weird scenario, but I'm thinking like maybe there's a quantum computer that like you could submit your ownership of the Bitcoin to, and the quantum computer will take your Bitcoin. I don't know. that seems a bit of a strange situation, but yeah. All right. This is the last thing I'll get to about quantum. Then I'm going to start going through in order here, and we'll go from there. NIST is already working to deprecate classical cryptography by 2030 and an outright ban on it for federal systems by 2035, forcing PQC in government systems by then. Yeah. So there will be a lot of track record, a lot of proving grounds, a lot of money put behind the quantum computing resistant cryptography that we will likely implement within Bitcoin. And I think it's important to remember that Bitcoin, the cryptography that it's built on, was not invented by Bitcoiners. It was not invented by Satoshi. It was used, I believe it actually was invented by the government, right? And correct me if I'm wrong here, but then it was implemented, right? And a lot of these things were around Bitcoin were actually just already existed in the world, and Satoshi cleverly brought them all together to create this system of money in the network of Bitcoin. Yeah, I already talked about this earlier. Well, actually, I didn't really talk about it, why Bitcoin isn't moving, but it's largely the business cycle, is what I said earlier. Okay, so we're starting from the beginning here. Ask any other questions. You can continue talking about quantum if you want. I'll eventually get to those as well. Took 180 covered calls this morning. Nav is talking about MSTR for this week. Are you in anything? Yeah, I looked at it today. The premiums weren't juicy enough. MSTR went up a little bit. This morning, I think it was 167 when I was looking at writing a covered call. But I decided against it, which maybe wasn't the right move because now it's down to 165. So I would have had a juicier premium. I'm going to wait a day. I have this feeling that there's going to be a time in this week where it might move. There might be a lack of activity because of Christmas, and therefore there might be some sort of movement. I don't know. I totally could be wrong here, but I'm just going to wait and sell closer to. I might miss out on a couple $100 or whatever, but it's not going to be the end of the world. And I'm just going to wait until I think it's a better opportunity to sell covered call on. What's up, Naughty Vlogs? Glad to see you. Unfortunately, probably can't watch today because I'm on vacation. Fair enough. Fair enough. Enjoy your vacation. All right. What's your view on XXI to buy beside Bitcoin? Yeah, I wouldn't do that. You're investing in a startup that you have no idea what they're doing. I don't hold any XXI. I bought upon announcement and went up like, I think it went up like 120% and I sold it. I wish I did it in massive size. I did not. I just, bet on the momentum trade. It fluctuated like crazy while it was still pre-SPAC. Now it's going back to its SPAC level of $10. I don't know if they've issued shares. I haven't really been paying that much attention to them. The way I think about XXI is, yeah, you're betting on this crazy connection of Tether and Bitfinex and SoftBank all having this public entity to funnel money through, but you can't just give money without return to a public company. That's just not how it works. So they have to get ownership. They have to get something for that. So they can only funnel so much money into it. So I don't think that company is going to go bankrupt or anything because they just have so much capital, so much power behind them with their investors they have, so they can rely on those. But I just wonder what the business will be, right? You're buying into a Bitcoin startup, right? Jack has actively talked about it not being a Bitcoin treasury company. He doesn't know if the preferreds or the debt instruments are really the way to go. And he wants to create a cash flowing Bitcoin business, which is great, but those are few and far between. Now, fortunately, two cash flowing Bitcoin businesses, one of them in quotes, I would say, are behind that company, right? Strike is a very efficient cash flowing Bitcoin exchange and lending arm, and Tether is Bitcoin adjacent with stable coins. So those are two incredibly profitable businesses that are connected to XXI. So does one of those go from private to public? Most likely it would be Strike, I would imagine, because right now he's dual CEO and Strike is private, profitable. He's talked about XXI having sort of a lending arm. That's what I've heard from him. If he bought Strike, the price would move like crazy. I think to the upside, I think that would be a good move, but that's not written in stone. And you know what is written in stone is fiat debasement and everything XXI doing, acquiring more Bitcoin, means Bitcoin will appreciate. So it's much less risky bet. There's just too many unknowns. So for me, I would stick to Bitcoin. Does that mean I'm going to miss out on huge gains if they take Strike public through XXI and it does really well and it's cash flowing and they acquire a bunch of Bitcoin and the market loves it? Yeah, probably. There might still be an opportunity to get in at some point, build a position when there's more certainty with what their business plan is. But right now, I think it should be known that people investing in that are investing in it because of the names behind it, but they're actually buying a Bitcoin startup. And I think a Bitcoin startup is really risky. Simple. Is there a way to send Bitcoin on Sparrow with less than 1 sat per VByte? I don't believe so. I think 1 sat is actually the smallest amount on Sparrow. I imagine they'll probably do an update. Actually, I haven't updated to the newest version, so I don't know if they've changed that with the newest version, but I imagine they'll do an update eventually. I actually don't know. Maybe we'll crowdsource this in the chat right now. What wallet software, what companion apps do allow for sub 1 sat VBytes? It's all I see in the Block Explorer, but I don't use any personally. I don't use any wallets that have 1 sat, less than 1 sat per VByte. .dev, nice. I started a $10 recurring buy of Bitcoin daily. Is it worth it? Yeah, of course. I mean, you're going to be able to buy, what is that? $10 worth is 10,000 sats or more at this point. And, you're buying a finite piece of the total amount of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is only becoming more and more scarce over time as more and more people lose their custody of it. There's more Bitcoin being bought by Strategy this year than was released by miners. And that amount gets cut down a lot as well. So yeah, I think that's great. I mean, that's $70 a week. That I think it's worth it if you have a long-term time horizon. I think Bitcoin is not a good thing to own if you are looking for short-term gains and you're making a bet on it and you have short-term obligations, because you will experience the one major risk of Bitcoin, in my opinion, which is volatility risk. And this is something that gets ironed out over time. So that volatility risk doesn't become a risk if you hold it for 3+ years. If you hold it for a month, you're experiencing massive volatility risk priced in dollars. So it's absolutely worth what you're doing, in my opinion. And you will thank yourself in 3+ years for sure. Letha, great to see you. Good afternoon. What's your view on MSTR then? MSTR is the giant in this space. If you have trapped capital, if I have trapped capital, I hold MSTR. I actually generate income off of it by selling covered calls, as I talked about with Nav at the beginning or a little while ago. And I believe in the management, the company, the operations. I do understand that it's an entirely different asset than Bitcoin in self-custody, and therefore I don't value it as much as Bitcoin. I think most people, the vast majority of people, should not be holding any Bitcoin treasury company, any Bitcoin connected company, anything, if they don't have the Bitcoin and self-custody that they believe will be generational wealth. Because if you don't have the Bitcoin in self-custody and you're buying MSTR, you're buying Strategy, or those are both the same thing. You're buying 21 Capital, you're buying Asset, whatever, Metaplanet, any of these, you're gambling on what has been the shit coins of this cycle, if we still believe in cycles. They have been the shock absorber of volatility. They have gone crazy up, they've gone crazy down, and Bitcoin has stayed relatively steady this whole year. So they've been the shock absorber. Potentially, they offset the timing of a alt cycle because people were in them in options and all that. That entire time, people were providing capital to them through the equity market, through the debt market. They took that capital and they bought Bitcoin with it. And they have not spat that Bitcoin out. At least MSTR hasn't. Sequans has, I believe, NACA has sold a little bit of Bitcoin too. Net, they're still positive, but they have sold some. We could see more of that throughout the time of these lettuce hand corporations, or maybe just tax loss harvesting, possibly. But net on net, these companies are going to be black holes for a certain duration of time, where Bitcoin goes in based on the capital that they raise, and that Bitcoin does not come out for a long time. And what does that do? That pushes out, that pushes up Bitcoin's price over a long term. I want to do an air-gapped wallet with Sparrow that is not listed in their options. It's not a known hardware wallet. Do you know how to do it? You should just be able to import an air-gapped wallet. Let me just take a quick peek at Sparrow. Import, let's see. Scan for connected devices, output descriptor. Import a file containing the output descriptor of a wallet, the output descriptor compatible with Bitcoin Core. That might be it. BSMS. That's for multisig. I would try the outputs descriptor. If it's a wallet compatible with Bitcoin Core, you can import a file. It's really going to be about importing the right file, or having the right file on your SD card, if that's how you're doing it, or QR code. That's a good question. I haven't tried that, because basically everything I've done has had an option within Sparrow. Try the output descriptor in the import, but maybe I'll look deeper into that. It is honestly frustrating when Bitcoiners refuse to accept it may not be forming as expected. It went sideways this entire year. I don't know what you want to hear, man. Your comments are pretty annoying. It is honestly frustrating when Bitcoiners refuse. It doesn't matter to me what it does in the short term. I think that's the main thing. I think that's probably why Bitcoiners don't accept that it's performing as expected. I don't expect Bitcoin, like, nobody is guaranteed a bull run within a time frame that they think they should have it. If you expect Bitcoin to do anything, you're gambling in the short term. I expect Bitcoin to outperform the vast majority of things in a long time period. I don't know what it's going to do in the short term. And maybe that's why you're frustrated, is because you don't understand that. Blue Wallet allows sub 1 sat bytes. Nice. Okay, thanks, Brandon. I'm going to try that out. Reason why I'm asking about $10 daily amount is because it is so low of an amount. Yeah, it's a low dollar amount, but ultimately it's still a lot of sats in the long term. And I think it's really just about what sats are worth in the long term. But I think you're going to be happy, as I said. We got a couple zaps over on Zapstream. Moravian, sorry, I don't know how to really pronounce your name too much. Zapped 21 sats and 2100 sats. Appreciate that very much. It looks like the stream is not performing well over on Zapstream. I don't mean in views. It says critical. I don't know if my internet is not performing very well. Cannon, what's up? Great to see you in the chat. Great stream. Let's see. Can I ask, what would be the feeling amongst the Bitcoin community if gold massively outpaced Bitcoin long term? Again, what does long term mean? I think gold will continue to perform really well. I think I've been overly bearish on gold because I think that it has this risk that eventually we will see play out, which is the monetary premium on gold that it doesn't deserve. Gold does not work as money. It's historically proved that gold cannot function as money for any serious length of time. The the fact that the issuer has the temptation to debase it and can do so easily without too much backlash, or can do that sort of slowly. Now it's a little bit harder to do that because of modern testing, but this is basically the case of the what is it, the denarius, which was a silver coin, and they basically just created alloys of it to some degree, and it took long time for that to play out, right? But that was the debasement of the currency in a physical sense. So gold has this history of being a neutral reserve asset, regardless if it has a monetary premium that is undeserved in the sense of there being a better asset for money. That still does not mean that it isn't a neutral reserve asset that can't be easily created, right? There's a cost of production to that. I do think that eventually the monetary premium will erode from gold. When does that happen? I don't know. But Bitcoin is just ultimately way better than gold. So it should long term play out. What's your view on ETH? Do you hold any? Do you see it becoming bigger in the future? I don't hold any ETH. I think ETH does not have the protocol layer where it can be where there's no easy competitive. I'm sorry, I'm being distracted. There's a lot of noise in my house today. Holidays and whatnot. Okay, so Bitcoin has a protocol effect that is almost impossible to break where the level it is today. ETH is not competing for the money protocol layer, the digital money of the internet. It is competing for smart contract platform and technology within there, whether it's NFTs, DeFi, stable coins, tokenization, this kind of thing. We just recently saw Coinbase, which is the biggest publicly traded meme coin casino or crypto casino in America. They recently released that they are having the ability to trade stocks on their platform. And guess what? They're tokenizing those and running them on the chain's base, which they created, and Solana, right? So ETH has a ton of competition, right? If it's not Solana, it's going to be the next one. And then if it's not the next one, it's the next one after that. And they're competing in these ways where all it leads to is more centralization and faster, right? That's what people care about. Nobody cares about the decentralization of ETH. Very few people do, in my opinion. So I don't see it becoming bigger. I mean, if we're comparing things, if we're looking at things priced in dollars, yes, it could become bigger. But if we price ETH in sats, if we price it in Bitcoin, it's going down because it has too much competition against it and too much centralization, too much control, the pre-mine. There's just no serious use case, right? If you think about the other thing here too, right, is what is the market it's competing for? How big is the fully actualized market of DeFi, NFTs, and tokenization? Is it 300 trillion? Because that's the market of money, right? And that's the market that Bitcoin is trying to take. It is very far away from taking over that market. It is less than $2 trillion. And that is the opportunity, right? Is if we believe that this protocol does have the network effect that I talked about and the ability to outcompete everything, then it will continue to take part of that $3 trillion market. And right now it's so small that we have a massive opportunity because of that. How come I get Bitcoin, but 99% of people out of 100 don't? I still can't understand how we are so alone here. By the way, I'm regularly playing Sats Arcade. Cool. Awesome. I didn't know anybody still played that. That's sweet. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of a pet project that largely is on the side right now as I've taken to other things. Um, yeah, all right. So, why do you understand Bitcoin when 99 people out of 100 don't? I think the answer to that is largely an aversion to understanding money, history, and technology. Right? Jamie Jamie Oliver. The hell is that guy's name? The guy with the talk show. John Oliver. John Oliver? Something or other. He famously said a great quote, which is Bitcoin is everything you don't understand about money mixed with everything you don't understand about computers. So a lot of people have an aversion to technology. A lot of people have an aversion to money because money is a negative in their mind. So they don't even want to step down this. There's probably also the other thing of the fact that when Bitcoin was introduced into their lives, they were introduced to it in a negative light. Oh, it's bad for the environment. It's one of these FUD dice things. Waste energy, it'll be banned, illicit use, it can't scale, too volatile, and no intrinsic value. So they read some article about one of those things on that dice that I have. And that's what they believe, right? They didn't revisit it. They don't care enough to revisit about it. They don't care about um, yeah, they don't care about any aspect of it. So I think that's probably why. I think I think 99 people could understand Bitcoin to some degree, but it's about the want. Do they want to, or do they need to? Do they have a need to know? I think most people are just so preoccupied with their lives that they never question the money that we use and that we grow up. What did you ask for from Santa this year? What did I ask for? I asked for some beef tallow, some blue light blocking glasses, some red light therapy, some grass fed beef, and some sats, and no sunscreen. Everything a Bitcoiner wants. Kind of annoyed I had to sign a transaction with PSBT with an air gapped wallet. It defeats the purpose. How can I avoid not doing PSBT transaction I had to do with passport? Yeah. Partially signed Bitcoin transactions is the way to do air gapped transactions. Yeah. You're not transferring your private key, you're validating that you have signed the transaction with your private key, so you're not risking anything by doing that air gapped way. Uh so yeah, this is not possible, right? You have to the hardware wallet does not have the ability to connect to the internet, but you need to connect to the internet to be able to send a transaction to the network. Um, it would be interesting, actually. I wonder if this is possible to create, because most of the time you're using a companion app, or the first half of what you're using a companion app for is building the transaction. I wonder if there's a wallet out there that you could actually transfer uh that you could build the transaction on, that has a balance. Basically the companion app is built into the hardware wallet. I don't know if there's anything else like that out there. What did you buy Jor and Rajat for Christmas? You know what? um I don't want to give away the present. I saw 88 sats in there, so I don't want to give anything away. I have never been fascinated by anything that crazy. I watch Bitcoin content every day, minimum 2 hours since 1.5 years. When will this obsession of mine stop? That's crazy. And, Nav with the jokes here. Um, yeah, you're getting your 40 hours per week in. That's awesome. Good for you. Congratulations. You know, I think I think it even comes in waves, right? Like, I make Bitcoin content, I do research, it's become part of my job, and when that happens, sometimes it becomes a bit of a grind where you're sort of like, okay, well, now I need to look into, okay, what's the next thing that I can teach somebody? What's the next thing I can learn to reiterate in my own way, or to digest, right? I need to digest some content to be able to understand it, what's going on and stuff. That can become it can force the mindset of it being a grind, but that only happens to me temporarily. And then I start to become fascinated again by a specific subject. I think Bitcoin touches on so many different things that obviously you and myself feel are incredibly interesting, um, which is a huge benefit, right, of having something that is intellectually stimulating. I think that a lot of people don't have that, right? They just veg out on whatever the newest show is. Um, yeah, they play video games. They, take a bunch of substances to just kind of numb reality, or to live in a different alternative reality, where instead we have this subject that we can go deeper into, which in a way fulfills that same purpose of having something interesting to focus on, right? That's just part of human nature to want to, it's part of human nature to want to learn. You need to get the transaction data from the computer and phone to the wallet to sign and then bring that signed transaction back to the computer. Typically, this is done with SD cards or QR code. Yeah, correct. Um, Yeah, again, I wonder if there's a way to do that on a hardware wallet and then only transfer out, right? You're not transferring something in, you're only transferring the signed transaction out. There's probably a reason why that doesn't exist. I haven't really thought about that before. The other thing too, right, is your device, your hardware device is incapable of connecting to the internet. Right? It doesn't have the capability of doing that. And you are sending a transaction, an unsigned transaction from that you've built on a companion app to the hardware wallet. There's nothing else that you're sending with it. So I would just not be too worried about that. Like that is the safest way to do everything. Where do you store your Bitcoin? On a hardware wallet like Tangem. I definitely store it on a hardware wallet, but definitely not one like Tangem. We talked about the quantum threat, right? And one of the quantum threats is that you've exposed your private key of your associated wallet. Tangem is a very dumb wallet, and it does not have the just the simple best practices of using a change address and using multiple addresses. You have one Bitcoin address in your Tangem wallet. When you send Bitcoin out of there, your change is going back to that same address. That is terrible practice for privacy and also does not protect you against quantum in this way. So I would not use Tangent for multiple reasons. The other reason is too that a lot of their hardware is closed source, right? It's been audited by third party, whatever. You can argue about that. Their software is open source, but um, I haven't personally done this, but I've talked to somebody else that knows how to do these kind of things. They said they were not able to compile their open source software. So what happens there is if you have no way of using the Tangem app, you have no way of recovering your Bitcoin if the Tangem app goes under, right? If Tangem as a company goes bankrupt, decides not to uh, exist anymore, you have this card that didn't generate 12 or 24 words for you and has the key stored in there, but you have no way to use it. So you have no access to your Bitcoin. There's a lot of risks, and these might seem like tail risks, but they're risks nonetheless. The other thing there too is if you do generate a 12 or 24 word, it'll say this isn't best practice for the Tangem wallet or whatever. If you do that, you've created now a hot wallet with a hardware key for some reason, because you've done that using their software, which is what a hot wallet is. Tangem, terrible idea. What I use primarily for a single sig passphrase wallet for which is a good solution for the vast majority of people, I would use a cold card. Cold Card Q is a great wallet. It's more advanced. People say it's complex, it's hard to use, this kind of stuff. I would say it's more advanced, but that means that everything you want to do will be doable. You don't have to try to hack it to make things work. Everything is just there. Great list. And some Guinness too, just for you. Have you watched Jeff Booth's content? I think that's too Vandalay. Yeah. Hardware wallet has no idea what UTXOs it has. I guess you could manually type the data into it, but that's just impractical. Right. It has no idea what UTXOs it has. Yeah, right. Because it would need, yes, right. There you go. because it would need the UTXO list from the node, and then it needs to connect to the internet to get that information. So you'd have to practically type it in, and then it would have to be correct, right? And maybe it could manually, or maybe it could automatically subtract. Say you type in your UTXO amount, your address, you build it within the app, and then you send a portion of it off. It would have to adjust for that. But then it would just have this internal record that it would be relying on to build transactions that isn't 100% accurate. If you use something else to send some Bitcoin off, it would say you have more Bitcoin than you actually have. Have you made any tutorials on Superback? No. I have. I've talked to Craig, who does a lot of the Superbacked stuff. Has a service to help people with Superbacked. Um, he's given me some information about how to run it. I have not done that yet. I've been so far behind on other things. It is not. It's on my list of things to do. I probably won't make a tutorial for it though, because um because I don't know. Maybe I'll talk to the crew there at Superbacked that does that. Um I just don't want to impede on their business, but it's all out there. It's all public source. You could AI it to get it running and do it all yourself anyway. But I don't know. Yeah, I did. Yeah, Jeff Booth is great. What about Trust Wallet? Trust Wallet is another like crypto wallet extension thing app with a bunch of junk on it. It's like MetaMask. I wouldn't use Trust Wallet. Yeah, got my cold card because of you. Nice, Canon. That's legit. And I'm sure you're following the full tutorial there. I actually have another video coming out tomorrow. Maybe coming out tomorrow. I accidentally released a video today, guys. Usually I just do a live on Mondays. I accidentally released a video about border wallets using Sparrow. Really, really fun. Really cool. I also made a video last week that I'll release this week sometime about how to create basically multiple accounts using derivation path changes within your cold card. So another video to add to that cold card tutorial series I have. I wonder if the general public will ever learn about things like self-custody and UTXOs. I'm guessing no. Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. I think you're probably right. I think a lot of people won't. It's a sort of a real digital sense with these UTXOs, but people oftentimes will compare them to bills. But bills are pretty easy to understand and they're uniform in their denomination. I wonder if it'd be interesting, like to have a. It's really hard to tell what the future has in store with us, but it's possible that a really user-friendly spending wallet, a hot wallet, has some sort of visualization that denominates each UTXO as a bill. I think that would be quite kind of interesting because then it relates to this understanding, right? Like we have this save function on every software is a floppy disk, right? We don't use floppy disks anymore, but the people that did use floppy disks adopted the internet, and there was a save function, and it was the physical way of saving data on the floppy disk was represented in a digital way. So I think if we represented the digital way of understanding UTXOs, it's in a physical sense of relaying that back to the physical sense, there's a possibility that a broad section of the general public could understand it. It's not exact. It does have these sort of wallet addresses a little bit more connected to it, and then the change address goes to it, or the change from a UTXO goes to a different wallet. There is some added complexity to it on purpose and to work in a digital sense. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. I think it's again really hard to predict what the future of Bitcoin development looks like and how it appeals to the general public. So far, UX UI has been terrible for Bitcoin, and I talked to somebody and he basically said, I think there's kind of a reason for that. Like, I think Bitcoin does not lend itself on it in the way that it's been built does not lend itself to a good user experience. He basically says, I don't think it's possible to have a really good user experience with Bitcoin. I tend to be more optimistic about that, or not have that view. I think it is possible. Um, but yeah, I think that, and self custody is a whole nother thing, right? That I didn't even address there. Um, I think I think people will have self custody, but it'll kind of look like how people have self custody of their money right now. It'll look similar. So what I mean by that is a lot of people will have some sort of custodial situation, just as we do with our own money, or our own US dollars or Canadian dollars currency. We have a bank account. Some of us take custody in bills and we have some in our wallet. That would be like a spending wallet. Some of us have a safe at home and we stick a couple grand in there, or a gold coin or something like that, right? And that might look like something like this, or a multi-jurisdictional multi-sig. And it's not everybody that does that. So there's just as there is today, there will continue to be a varying degree of people taking self custody. I think the thing that really matters is the ability to take self custody is a superpower, and those who decide to empower themselves can do so, and they don't have the debasement happening, right? You can take self custody of dollars in the form of cash, but somebody else controls the printer that is printing that away. So you're still protected against that, by taking self custody of your Bitcoin. Oh, some great in talking there. I love it, guys. That's awesome. The whole cold card is advanced. Jade Plus is better for beginners. Has not played out for me. I got both, and the Jade is janky AF. Cold card is much easier to use and understand. I agree with this. I think that I find it hard to place the Jade, and I was a proponent of the Jade for a while. I used the Jade. I even have it right here. I don't use it anymore because the cold card is so much better. And you'll look at my links and stuff. I don't promote the Jade anymore, even though they have a way better affiliate program. But to me, it's more important to get people into the right infrastructure, which is the cold card for me. I think the Jade not really working as an air gapped wallet. Like, it's possible, but you have to connect it to do updates to firmware. You have to set it up first by connecting it to your computer. I haven't found an easy way around that. That makes it just like, well, what's the point of doing air gap transactions after that? Like, there's a slight point of not continuing to connect it to a device, but it sort of defeats the purpose to some degree. The cold card can be completely offline and completely detached. And every step of the way, you're going to get a detailed instruction that you can read on the cold card. The Jade is more confusing than I think a lot of people realize. I think that narrative, I think that quote is led people down the wrong path, and I've probably said that as well. So um, hopefully I haven't led too many people astray as I was, you know, learning more about the cold cards, hardware wallets as well and everything. Um, but yeah, cold card is a huge step up, huge step up from the Jade. Idea to watch a theory of a guy called Solstein at the Breedlove channel some time ago. He suggests a mathematician called John Nash could be Satoshi. I recommend watched. I watched then some speeches of Nash. Recommend. Cool. Be cool to watch those. I personally, I don't care who Satoshi is. I think probably most people don't, but yeah, there was talk about the Jade was recently compromised. Yeah, party audit found some sort of vulnerability. I haven't looked too much into it. But yeah, it's probably a good idea to do the firmware update and potentially begin moving your coins over to a better wallet, in my opinion, which is the cold card. Jade CEO is sus. That's Adam back. Yeah, I don't know. There isn't a chance in 1,000 Sundays that people are going to self custody. Well, I self custody, so there's your chance in 1,000. Many other people will, and as I stated earlier, lots of people can and will, and there's many people who won't, and that's fine. The importance is again that you can use the network peer-to-peer, that the blockchain is auditable, transparent, and no one can fudge how many Bitcoin there are. Now, that's the problem with custody, right? Is that it allows for some level of potentially fudging numbers. But as we can see with Bitcoin, that eventually gets, washed out. That eventually gets seen because there's only 21 million Bitcoin, and between Strategy and BlackRock, if they all of a sudden have 22 million Bitcoin, we know there's something going on. So yeah, it's a much better system. Is 0.21 Bitcoin top 1%, like Brian Harrington says? I don't know, but that guy lost it on me on Twitter. He was promoting Link. He was saying something about how XRP holders should sell their XRP and buy Link, and I said it doesn't matter either way; they're both shit coins. And then he says, "What does that mean?" And I said, "They both suck dingleberries. It doesn't matter which one you hold." And then he said, "You have absolutely no idea how to talk to people about crypto and blah blah blah." And it's like, holy shit, dude, you are promoting a crypto coin that is heavily pre-mined and basically a scam. It doesn't really matter either way. Pretty embarrassing, actually. Pretty embarrassing. I don't know. Pretty crazy. Is 0.21 Bitcoin top 1%? It's top 1% in the world. It is not top 1% in Bitcoin holders today. So if you get it was on Twitter, Nav. It was on Twitter. Is top so yeah, so it is 1%. You're the top 1% of holders compared to no coiners. I think it's around, if everybody in the world, if there's 8 billion people or something like that, and all the Bitcoin was divided up, we would all have about 250,000 Satoshis, something around that, right? So that is 10% of basically 0.21 or 0.25. So yeah, you would be in the top 1%. And I think we should all have goals of amounts of Bitcoin that we can realistically get. My goal is to hold the Bitcoin of a block subsidy. This is something that gets easier and harder as time goes by. It gets harder because on average, Bitcoin's going to go up in price compared to dollars. It gets easier because every 4 years, there's the block subsidy gets cut in half. So eventually, I will reach my goal, and to me, that's a good goal to have, is a block subsidy. And then you know that you'll be in the top 1% if that's what's important. Yeah, it is more complicated to self-custody Bitcoin than to store dollars under your mattress, and it's way more secure, and again, you're not being debased. So yeah, it is harder, but it doesn't mean that it isn't better. And it's not that hard to self-custody Bitcoin on a hot wallet, which is obviously not the best way to store it, but probably better than to store it under your mattress. This is interesting. I'm surprised this wasn't asked earlier. Thoughts on quantum? Should we lock lost coins or let them be stolen? This is a really hard question to answer. I don't know. I'll say that. I don't know. I think it's possible that there could be some sort of way of allowing. Sorry, hit the microphone. I know that sounds terrible. There's some way of making it so that you can move you can move coins, but it's sort of only a certain amount at a time if they're unlocked in that way. This would prevent basically massive dumping of coins, which again is still unrealistic in my eyes, and allows time for people with quantum affected addresses to move as well. I think that's probably the way. Um, I don't think locking them is the way to go. It's a really hard question to ask. As you can tell, I don't really have an answer for it, but yeah. Let's see. Brandon has an opinion on it. I'm here to hear it. I'm on the opinion that coins that don't move to quantum safe addresses before someone achieves quantum supremacy are a prize for whoever achieves quantum supremacy. Coins shouldn't be frozen. Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that way too. I don't think coins should be frozen because it also doesn't allow for people to, even if the quantum doesn't attack those coins or whatever, those people might realize that they have ownership of it at some point and you've frozen their coins, which just doesn't feel right to me. And it's possible that, the 1 million coins that Satoshi mined is sort of is just this giant pot of Bitcoin, in one way of saying, look how secure Bitcoin is. And because nobody can take it, right? That's part of it right now, at least. And then when somebody can, it's like, okay, well, there you go. You have beaten that time frame of Bitcoin. Any experience with Foundation Passport looking for 3 different devices for multi-vendor, multi-sigs? Cold card is given. Jade has disappointed. Okay. Yeah, the Jade is there's actually somebody in our school community that set up a multi-vendor, multi-sig. And he said the Jade was the worst one to do it. He still used the Jade, but he said it was the worst one to do it with. Cold card, can't remember what else he did. I mean, it depends how important air gapping is for you, because you could use something as simple as a Trezor, right? Obviously not air gapped, reasonably cheap. Again, it's open source. Foundation Passport, I don't have any personal experience with, but I've heard that it's, a lot of people say it's even better than Cold Card or just as good, right? So you're probably safe with that, but I don't have any personal experience with it. Yeah, I just saw the tweet. He made a lot of good Bitcoin content. Yeah, I don't know. I was like, dude, did this guy's account get hacked? Because all I've ever seen him talk about is Bitcoin, but I guess he's trying to, I don't know, make people lose money on a different altcoin instead of actually moving them towards Bitcoin. It's crazy. Haven't personally used a Foundation Passport, but I do like it, and I like that it's fully open source too, unlike Cold Card. Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason that that Cold Card is not fully open source. I mean, it's verifiably open source. It's not doesn't have the license where you can replicate it. Is because of Passport. I believe they copied it and then used it. So used the code and all that stuff. Are you aware that the performance comparison between Bitcoin and XRP since their inception is very comparable? Yeah, I am not aware of that. I haven't really looked at that, but it doesn't really matter to me. I mean, XRP is completely 100% pre-mined, owned by a corporation, so that you have that overhead of them selling those coins onto the market at any time they need to raise funds for their CBDC consulting company that they run. It's the exact opposite of what Bitcoin is designed for. XRP is designed for. It's the antithesis of the negative side of digital money. Personal opinion on the here. This is just a white paper. This was given to me by Bitbox when they sent me a hardware wallet to review. This is just a white paper and some other information about Bitcoin as well. Personal opinion on the 4-year cycle. Yeah, I think it's dead. I think it's a business cycle that we've been in. I don't really believe in the 4-year cycle. I feel like I would enjoy Bitcoin a lot more if we could spend it. I would much rather hold something physical if it's just going to be a store of value. Yeah, Bitcoin is not just a store of value. It's also in its adoption cycle. Oh my God, I'm over an hour here. Hour 10. I didn't even realize. So many good questions. Yeah, you can spend it. I mean, go to, I think it's Bitcoin directory. You can spend it online like crazy. There's so many websites that accept Bitcoin. And then BTC Map, there's about 25 businesses in my, we just onboarded a dentist. We onboarded a dairy farm for that grass-fed butter. They all accept Bitcoin in person. Another hair salon as well. Yeah, it's happening, and it's just a matter of time. 144 million% overall of Bitcoin compared to 32K XRP percent is not comparable. Yeah, I don't know. BMNR is a scam. I can tether issue more dollars than market cap of Tron. Doesn't do that. Any of those stablecoin volume has to translate to gains in the underlying shitcoin. Yeah, Tom Lee is just basically riding up the hype, dude. That dude is making so much money off of just hyping up the worst idea ever, which is the ETH treasury company. So dumb. All right, everybody, we're going to do two more tosses in the Bitcoin wishing well, and I'll leave you at that. And that is a way for you guys to earn some free sats from watching the show. First person to scan this QR code that I'm going to bring up on stage. Not that one. Share this tab instead. First person to scan the QR code wins some free sats. You can scan it with your Lightning wallet of choice. Personally, I use Coinos for my custodial wallet. And then I have a Lightning channel as well that I use for my non-custodial. And we're going to do one more. First person to scan these wins some free sats. If you don't want to compete against other people, you can actually sign up to Bitcoin Well using my code in the description, and you'll get, I believe, 5 free tosses in the Bitcoin Wishing Well, 456 sats to the first person that scans that. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate you all. See you next Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also on Friday, I stream with Rajat and Jor on Maple Bitcoin. And that is at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. See you guys all there. Goodbye.